The clock's fast. The clock's fast. Oh, is it? Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's board meeting. And so we'll have the flag salute. Twee, will you lead us in flag salute tonight?
Okay, hand over heart. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Twee. Superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening, board, and good evening, everybody. It's so nice to see everybody. As I do before each board meeting, I like to take a little time and talk about some of the things that have happened in our district over since the last board meeting that we had. And so first, a really great event that took place in here back on October 23rd, where we celebrated 179 students who had reclassified as English learners. It was such a fun night. Hillary Patap, our English learner coordinator, did a great job organizing it as the students came with their parents and got certificates and got to be honored. So congratulations to all of them. I also want to acknowledge that 2 of our schools were just recently named honorees by Educational Results Partnership, and they looked at 3 years of CASP data in English language arts and math and highlighted those that saw sustained growth and success across all student groups. And so that was Garen and Adam, so congratulations to them on that. Very nice. And then I was reminded on the 24th in a TK room how invaluable our art docents are that participate and support art throughout each of our elementary school campus. And so this was Ms. Sisney's class. They were doing art projects on Diwali and Dia de los Muertos. And so really fun to see that. So thank you to all of them. Lots of great Halloween celebrations taking place. So here's a Halloween dance at Adams Middle School that took place. Lots of a new tradition that we see popping up in lots of places is a trunk or treat event out in the parking lot where parents or staff members decorate a trunk, dress up in costume, and then hand candy out. So a nice little block party out there. So these were ones from Brentwood, Ron Nunn, and Montañez that were fun to see going on. Also saw out Pioneers Parents Club did a special history art demonstration, and they did a activity for students all about the Filipino community, and so that was a fun thing to see out at Pioneer on the 25th. Also on the 25th, the area fest was hosted by Heritage High School, and so both the Bristow and Adams bands participated out there along with other schools that were there. And then we saw last month we had our Bristow choir that was at the Warriors game. This time Mrs. Greth and the Adams choir did the national anthem, and the Warriors won by 21. So anyway, so we might have to get her out there a little bit more. And the team. Miss Jenkins' class and the computer science class at Edna Hill, they were coding some video games, so really fun activities for them. Also love this. So for Red Ribbon Week, every Bristow advisory class, they did a lesson and a poster on their natural highs. So Red Ribbon is about saying no to drugs, right? And so I love that the health students actually prepared the materials for the classes, and the 8th graders went out and presented the lessons. So thank you to all those leadership students for doing that. This is a great program out at Adams Middle School. So it's a student-run coffee cart. It's supported by Chill, and this is Mrs. Human's students who practice these skills. They take orders, and then the money goes to the Unified unified sports program that supports special ed and general education students playing together on the same team. So thank you to Katie Human for putting that opportunity together and the Adams staff for supporting it. Also, that time of the year that cross country is kicking off. So here was Edna Hill hosting a meet with Adams and Knightson and Delta Vista. And so really just a big thank you to all the people that put in all the time and effort so that we can have these great sports that connect kids to their community. And then I was lucky enough to go out to the Mary Casey Black Halloween parade on October. It's always hard to decide where to go. But truth is that Maria Gonzalez really goes overboard on Halloween. She's got a little thing about it. And so I knew I would have a great time out there. And they did just a fantastic job. But you can see across our district the effort that's put into making this a really fun day for kids and the creativity that goes in from our staffs and having really correlated outfits and different things. It just makes it a real special time. So thank you to everybody and hope you all had fun. And then this is kind of fun too. So we also congratulated our special education employees of the month on that day. So they're all in costumes. So congratulations to Nicole Newland at Ron Nunn, Giovanna Lencioni at Montañez, and Ashley Slagle and Teresa Ward Bustos at Marsh Creek. So congratulations to them on being selected for Special Educators of the Month. And then this was a fun new thing that took place out at Adams. So now that we have string instruments, they decided to do a spooktacular symphony. So in costume, Miss Isaac conducted the orchestra and had it as a nice little event for families to come out and see. I was able to go out and watch Miss Dearman's sixth graders out at Bristow. They had been learning about structural engineering, and they were trying to build structures out of popsicle sticks and glue that would survive earthquakes. And so they were building them when I was out there. So I'm not sure how they survived in the testing going forward, but I'm interested to hear. And then these were out. I was watching Mr. Rodriguez's class out at Edna Hill, and they were performing commercials for inventions and innovations from the Chinese Middle Ages. So it was fun to watch them advertise things and then have a contest at the end to see who was the most persuasive going forward. This is our Harvest Grove leadership students who came together to design their own tie-dye masterpieces out there. And so lots of fun out there, and we appreciated them doing it outside on city property. So a tie-dye could make a mess. And then this is the ofrenda at Brentwood Elementary School, where different staff members and students came together and found a way to honor the lives of family and friends who had passed away. So really great display, great activity for students. I was able to visit Miss Lyman's class at Edna Hill. They were making elephant toothpaste, and they were learning about exothermic chemical reactions. So I remember about 50% of it. It was very complicated, but she did a great job explaining it, and the kids really got it. And so I was glad there was no test at the end for the superintendent. This weekend, I got to see two fantastic performances that were put on. So this is Aladdin at Edna Hill. Really great energy, lots of great sets. The Cave of Wonders was really cool. So the one in the top right there with the cave, the lights came on the eyes, the mouth opened and closed, and the Aladdin Al actually walked into the Cave of Wonders. It was very cool. So really great performance. And then that night I was able to go see Frozen Jr. out at Adams, and they did a fantastic job. So Miss Greth, fresh off of her choir performance at the Warriors game, started their 2 weeks of performances around Frozen Jr. And so, and a special thanks to her and Mr. Bullington for all the work that they put in. Again, another fantastic show, and they're having another performance this weekend. So I think it's their last weekend. If you want to go. We have different schools that do different Veterans Day events. So this is Ron Nunn Elementary doing their annual Veterans Day assembly and honoring men and women from the community. And so real special event. I know Brentwood Elementary had one as well. And then this is a different award, and it might look the same because Guerin Elementary was also recognized again, but this is Innovate Public Schools, Top Schools of 2025, that really looked at schools that were closing the achievement gap. And so Guerin Elementary was honored in 2 areas, and Ron Nunn was honored in 1 area. So I want to say congratulations to them. Really nice to see. all that success and hard work being recognized. And then my final slide today is about Kim Bowen. So we also have an award-winning teacher who was selected for a very special award, and it's the Outstanding Contributions to Literacy Award. And I want to invite up to the microphone Joni Smith, retired teacher Joni Smith, who's, yeah, that one right over there, Joni, yeah, who's going to say a little bit more.
All right. Well, I'm the president of the American Literacy Corporation, and we started in 1992, so we've been 33 years now. One of the special things about Brentwood is that we have 13 winners now from Brentwood over the past 32 years, and Kim Bowen is a winner this year. And I also see in the audience that Chrissy Minks, who was a winner in 2019 in Sacramento at our convention, was a winner back then. So we're glad Chrissy is here to support Kim. And Kim is receiving a basket tonight of goodies and gift cards and things. On December 7th, we'll be acknowledging her in a Zoom celebration, and I'll make sure that we continue to send out the invites for that to everyone. And tonight, I just wanted to say what a pleasure it was working with Kim a long time ago, but also acknowledging her for all of her hard work in Brentwood. Also on our board is Tamara Golenvo from Guerin Elementary School and Julie Dooley from the County Office of Education. Our past winners include people like Karen Eaton, Karen Nelson, myself, Janice Burns, Gail Giozzi, Joe Olney, Megan Faulkner, Connie Baker, and Cynthia Snodgrass, and more recently, Karen Eaton and Karen Nelson, Chrissy, and I know I'm going to forget someone, but anyway, there's quite a few from here. So it's a really special honor to always give it to someone in our school district. And she'll be receiving a $3,000 and a $500 school grant. And next year, we're raising that school grant, principals. Get those teachers to apply to $1,000. So the total award, and if you're a member of the California Reading Association, can be up to $4,500. So Kim, you want to come up and accept your basket? Materials and the refreshments are supplied by American Literacy. So Kim, you want to talk a little bit about the award?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, and honestly, to have a corporation value literacy and education, and it's just a real honor, and also just the opportunity to reflect on this really my 37th year of teaching. So, to reflect on that.
She's outstanding, and she did such a great job with her data presentation for us, and all of that was amazing. If everyone did as much with intervention as you're doing, you'll be
Yeah. Kim, we're so excited to be able to celebrate you tonight and the long-term positive impact that you've had on so many students in our district. So congratulations. We're very proud of you and so happy that you work here. And just a quick thing to Joni, despite retiring several years ago, you come back so many times and are always so supportive of the teachers and staff in this district and continue to pay it forward. And we really appreciate you and your longtime service of this district. So thank you very much, Joni.
Michael, you must be very proud of your daughter.
And on that note, Joni was also kind enough to bring some treats. So we thought we'd break for a little 5-minute celebrations. That's a long board celebration, is 5 minutes. And so come on up over here. There's some cookies and treats, and then we'll resume the meeting right afterwards. So a little reception to honor. Okay. Thank you, Joni. Yeah. Congratulations, Kim.
All right.
We're going to start up in 1 minute. Lemon bar?
I tried to be healthy.
No, she made that. She made a nice feel good. There's a lot of feel good. She was really.
Well, thank you all for the dessert, and it's nice to see everyone.
We are going to start back up. So most of the Bowens can go if they'd like.
Most of them. Do we have any board member comment or report? If not, I'll call for an open of public comment.
Move that we open public comment.
Moved and seconded. We have public comment. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's approved 5-0. I'm supposed to read this, but it's a 3-minute thing we really don't discuss because it's not agendized. But Sahil Mathula.
Hello. Oh, okay. Hello, BUSD staff and BUSD board members. Thank you for letting me present some fairly brief remarks regarding the work of our Youth Commission and the events that we need your support from. However, before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Sahil Narula, and as you could probably infer, given the topic of my speech, I am a commissioner of the Brentwood Youth Commission. And now, without further ado, let's delve into it. First, since the last meeting from when I last spoke, the Youth Commission has officially certified 2 new events heavily dependent on your gracious support. First and the largest is the career fair. While it is still in preliminary planning, we expect to need help from schools to advertise and send staff as speakers, if they would like to speak, of course, i.e. teachers, principals, etc., as the career fair will serve a vast multitude of jobs and etc., and teaching is obviously a very important segment of them. Next, we have the civic essay competition. The entry fee is $10 and proceeds will go to the Youth Commission College Sponsorship Fund. We're targeting more mature audiences for this competition, so just keep that for reference. The winner gets a whopping total of $250 from the Youth Commission and recognition. Second and third place receive recognition only. All winners get the recognition from the Brentwood Press. We need the schools to advertise and help convey the existence of the competition. Since indeed we are planning to get this essay off the ground by December, some of my colleagues and me will be emailing you guys close to the end of the month or to the start of December, so please check your guys' emails. Finally, while not approved yet, we still need consent from the city attorney, we are planning to send out a school survey to all middle and high schools. So, to all the middle school principals of the great schools of Edna Hill, Adams, and Bristow, my school, please check your emails that I have sent you a few details a week ago about, and will do so coming up about the logistics and progress. Now, with all of that, thank you, BUSD board members and staff, for allowing me to speak today. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Next, we have Chrissy Minks.
Good evening. My name is Chrissy Minkst. I am currently an intervention teacher at Guerin School. I teach small groups of reading and math help. If all of our students were as phenomenal as you were as a speaker, then I probably wouldn't have a job, but that was fantastic. And then we saw earlier that Guerin and Ron Nunn were recognized for Closing the Gap awards, and Kim was recognized for her outstanding job. And I think it's really important to have some context behind what an incredible achievement that is. In today's classes, I'm just gonna I'm also a member of BTA, and that is important because I've been talking to representatives from different schools. And in learning that, there's a lot of things that I think you ought to be aware of what's going on in our classrooms today. So I'm going to tell some stories, not about a particular person or teacher, but just to let you know that these are the sorts of things that happen. Children are regularly swearing in our classrooms at us, at each other, under the rug, under the tables, mumbling. I mean, it's just rampant, and there's very little we can do about it. There doesn't seem to be an effective deterrent. They're arguing. Today I helped a first grader take a test, and she argued with me the whole time as to whether or not she was right or if she needed to finish the test. We have kids who are placed incorrectly with special needs in a general ed classroom that are having to be escorted out, and or classes escorted out while that student has a breakdown because they do not have the tools they need to succeed in a general ed classroom. We are always short of aides. We're trying to get these kids the help they need, and it's very difficult to do that. There's kids who are incorrectly placed. We've been asked to do inclusion in our classrooms, which is a great thing, but we haven't been given any training or assistance in doing that. A teacher was bitten recently. The only tools we're giving are sticker charts, which we buy the prizes for the most part for those sticker charts, and told to respect their social emotional needs, which we get. We know it's tough out there. It's also tough on us. But we have not given tools on how to deal with students who have all these, other than to be compassionate, which by nature most of us are. Been told to don't take it personally, don't engage, don't overreact. When I have a class full of students who are dysregulated and arguing and pestering each other and constant noise, there is constant noise now, ever since COVID. It's really hard for me not to take it personally and for me not to react because I'm trying to make it too. I tell you this because I've always been a fighter for the underdog. I remember back when I was in elementary school. And I think it's important that we have the systems in place to help all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any other speakers that didn't get a card in? If not, we'll bring a motion to close public comment.
I'll make a motion that we close open. I second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0. Next item is item 8, consent items. Is there anyone who would like to pull or address any singular item? If not, I'll accept a motion to pass.
Move that we accept consent items 8.0 through 8.7.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Number 8, consent items. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. There are no hearings or appeals tonight. No report out of closed session. So the next is an information item, the priority goal update, provide an environment where everyone belongs and has value.
Thank you.
Right. Good evening, everybody. I am Kristen Job, as you know, Director of Student Services. I am proud to be alongside Danielle Cotton, our TSA of Belonging, and we are here to share and give you an update on our board priority goal which is belonging, that we're going to be sharing about this evening. Our belonging goal is to share about an environment where everyone belongs and has value. And the pieces that we really want to focus on tonight are making sure that we promote the new piece of our team, which is our TSA of belonging, which is making sure that we focus on these specific areas. Danielle came into this position and we had to really narrow it down, talking with all of our cabinet members and focus on the areas of what we want to focus on the most starting off. So the areas that we're leading right now are coordinating our district culture and climate committee, providing professional development to the sites on belonging, culture, and climate. What you're hearing from the staff tonight, it's really important that we build those restorative practices and focus on that school climate and inclusive practices that support the social emotional development of all students. We know that this is a very challenging time to teach and be in a school environment, and so we know this is an area we absolutely have to focus on. So the Culture and Climate Committee specifically is one that we developed a couple of years ago as a district level, and we want all of the school sites to mirror that specifically. So the agreements that we've made is that each school site will have some kind of a Culture and Climate Committee that has these areas. They will meet quarterly. They will have some kind of restorative justice practice. They will look at the recommendations from our BUSD equity audit. They will have some type of PBIS supports that have our social emotional needs of students that are being looked at, and then suspension data needs to be looked at as well, because we want to make sure that we are closing that equity gap for our students.
So part of what I've been working on in the few months that I've started in position, I've been working with Emily Richards, our new teacher support program coordinator at the district, in delivering a series of 6 trainings to new teachers in BUSD, Oakley, and Liberty. The first one was in October, and that was on creating welcoming classroom environments, the importance of creating welcoming classroom environments. The next one is actually next week, and that one is on the logic of restorative practices in the classroom as behavioral management tool. The site level professional learning sessions, I gave my first professional development session to Ron Nutt on our district PD day on back there on building relationships, the importance of building relationships and how that lays the foundation for restorative practices, and how to use restorative conversations to continue to build on that relationship, and how those can lead to mitigating some of those behaviors that we're seeing in the classroom. I'll be working with Marsh Creek Elementary next week with their first grade team, because they are seeing some of those same behaviors that were mentioned with the language being used in the classroom, and how to use restorative practices, and especially just talking about having these conversations with kids to build empathy and to build behavioral awareness, because I think a lot of times we just aren't telling kids the impact of their language. We're redirecting, we're giving consequences, but we aren't actually stopping and having those conversations. So looking at restorative conversations and those practices as a way to build empathy and to modify behavior. For restorative practices, resources being available to staff, I actually built a website that's linked there, and it's been provided to all the site admin that are on the district level Culture and Climate Committee. And it just has, because all of the sites are kind of in different places as far as the implementation of restorative practices. Some of them have been doing it for years, so they're way ahead, and some of them are just kind of starting to figure it out. And so there's resources, no matter where you are, that are available to the school sites on the website that I've started building.
Here, I'm gonna share with you. Sorry.
So if you go to like the Culture and Climate Committee resources, there's tons of resources. There's PD if site admin wants to do on a CLT day, just give a quick PD lesson on a restorative practice topic. There's data from the checks, the California Healthy Kids. There's all kinds of stuff that's available to them there that they can access that will deal with these sorts of topics. And then the other piece that I've been working on, I started a student shadowing program, and this information's in that folder that I gave you. A couple weeks ago, I started shadowing students at Bristow and Edna Hill. I'm working on arranging it for Adams coming up in the next week or so. But basically it involved me shadowing a student because I've been in the classroom for 16 years. So I know what it looks like from my vantage point as a teacher very well, right? But I've never actually sat in a modern day classroom as a student, as a 12-year-old, as a 5th grader. And so what I did was I shadowed 2 students around an 8th grader and a 7th grader in their classes all day. And they were great. They were phenomenal. One of them told everyone that I was his mom, which was awkward, but it was fun. And I really got to see what it felt like to be a kid in that classroom again, what it was like to participate in the activities, what it was like to hear the conversations that were happening at the table, because we hear it from the front of the classroom, but when we walk by, they all go. Right, but when I'm sitting at the table, I hear what they're talking about. I see what they're doing, and it gave me a different vantage point. And then within a day or two, I debriefed with the student, and the questions that I asked them are in there, and they just told me everything, and they shared a lot. And the insights I got, one of them like brought me to tears, the things that he told me, because I had the special privilege of seeing him at 2 different schools. I knew him when I was a teacher at one school, and then I shadowed him as he had transferred to another school. And so it was just a really precious opportunity to get that perspective. And then from there, I wrote up a summary of my reflections in addition with his perspective and shared that with the administrators in an administrative summary to give them kind of insight into what the kids are sharing with me as far as their perspective goes. And so that kind of data collection will allow me to share with the Culture and Climate Committee the things that kind of will help us flesh out the data that's coming to us in the California Healthy Kids survey, but kind of makes it more 3-dimensional. Instead of it just being data that's coming in and numbers on a page, these are what the kids are actually saying behind that data that's on the page. So it can kind of encourage discussion and reflection, and then give us action items in response to what they're experiencing day to day. And then the other thing that's in your folder is I took the checks data and for each individual school, I took their data and compared it with the data for BUSD, Contra Costa County, and the state, so they could kind of get a glimpse of where they are in comparison with those 3 other metrics. And so each school kind of got their own individualized portrait of their data.
Here's our pictures. This is Danielle doing her thing, professional development, amazing pictures. With the Rondon group.
And the other one
And
is
then another one is
Loma Vista, I
Loma
think.
Vista as well. So just her impact around the district so far, with a quarter and a little smidge so far with her tenure as our TSA. Are there any questions for us?
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way you take the quantitative results from the Healthy Kids survey, and then kind of dig into the qualitative data actually, and to be able to reinforce it and as a vantage point is to move forward with it. So it's a good concept.
Thank you. We heard with our last meeting from the principals, and belonging was one of the things that was certainly mentioned in almost every group, and so that's an important impact, we believe, in our schools. So thank you for these report. John, you're on. All right. Table's fine. We've talked about budget and finance, and we've done a survey, and John Isom, a company, has done the survey, and we're going to report and discuss that. Thank you, John.
Great. It's great to be here this evening, members of the board and district administrators and members of the Brentwood community. My name is John Isom. I'm with Isom Advisors, and we're the district's financial advisor. And our job when we work with school districts throughout the state of California is to help districts access funding. And just by way of reminder, I mean, you guys know this, but it's always good to remind folks, you know, the primary way that school districts are funded for major capital improvements, we're not talking about carpet and paint, we're talking about major renovations, building schools, things of that nature, is the state of California, developer fees, and then property taxes, either local bonds or CFD or Belarus bonds. This district's no stranger to those tools, having leveraged a lot of state bond dollars over the years, local bond dollars, having passed 4 local school improvement measures in the last 35 years. But it's been a while, right? 10 years since the last time this district passed a school improvement bond measure. So what we are charged with is assisting districts on helping assess the feasibility of a program in your community. And every school district that we work in, our job is pretty straightforward, where we believe in transparency. We believe in saying, hey, we know a process that works, and it entails asking and listening, getting feedback from the community. And then our recommendation is ultimately to give to the voters a program that they support. And if they don't support a program, then you don't give them anything, right? So we want to make sure that what we're doing here is in line with what voters in your community support. 2 steps, and I'm only going to talk about the first one in this survey presentation, but 2 key steps that go into it is a kind of a quantitative assessment and then a qualitative. I'll touch on the qualitative at the end of my presentation because it really entails the next step. But the quantitative is statistics, data, numbers. And that's what a survey gives us. And so I'm going to take you through this presentation, hopefully answer any questions that you guys have, but ultimately give you insights as to what your community and specifically your voters think about the idea of supporting another school improvement bond measure. Again, like you did last in 2016. So I'm going to take you through this, and there's going to be so much data, so much information. I'm not going to talk about every single number or we would be here all night. So I'm going to give you kind of some highlights. I'm going to give you some context. I'm going to call out specific data points, but again, I'm not going to get into every single little percent. So let's talk about the methodology. So first and foremost, a survey is a sampling of, in this case, registered voters, right? We don't need to talk to all 46,000 registered voters. We just need to get a sample of them. So our sample was 400. That's what we wanted to get, 400 people to participate. It's a random sample. That means that if you're registered to vote and you have a voting history, you are in the pool. Now, if you don't have a phone number, we can't reach you. Obviously, we can't connect with you there. But if you're a registered voter and you voted, so if you've been registered for 2, 4, 6, 10, 20 years, but never voted, we don't care about your opinion as much, right, as those that are going to decide things. So that gives you a margin of error of about 4.9%, which when we're talking about statistical accuracy, you'll see and get an idea of how close we are in certain areas. Specifically, we're testing attitudes, right? Attitudes to the district, to projects, to taxes, and to the concept of a bond program overall in the Brentwood School District community. It took us about 5-6 days to make calls, and they are phone calls. So we reach into people's homes, and when done correctly, this representative sample of 400 is going to reflect the demographics of likely voters in 2026. Okay, so it may not reflect exactly Brentwood or the school community, but it represents the likely voter community. And again, that's who decides our fate. So that's what we're looking to do here. So let me also say this just by setting the table here. Most of this survey presentation is going to follow along the same ways as the survey questions themselves. Okay, there'll be a few areas where we change the order because a big portion of the survey questions are randomized. So every single person is getting a different order as it relates to projects, for example. But we need to put them in and we need to settle on one order, and so we've taken the liberty. But for the most part, you can kind of picture yourself being taken through this survey as if you were on the phone with a caller, and you'll get a pretty good idea of the order of things. So we do start out just to kind of get people comfortable. We say, hey, what are your thoughts on things in Brentwood, right direction or wrong direction? And you can see, 73, 18%, so about a 5-to-1 ratio, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 ratio as far as generally people think things are going well in Brentwood. Then we switch to the school district. Well, how would you rate the quality of education in the district? Now, you got very high marks, right? 23%, 43%, almost 2/3 of the voters say good to excellent, only 5% poor. And sometimes as we're looking at data throughout this, I look at the poor as much as I look at the positive stuff. We wanted to get a sense of what's the attitudes or perception of the classrooms and the conditions. Do people think, hey, our schools are great? In which case we have a little bit of problem, meaning we've got to do some education to show them that they're not so great on the facility side of things. Perception here, half good, 18% excellent, and only 2% think they're poor. Now, your schools, we went back and Dana shared some information with me. Your school's average age is about 30 years. So for the most part, a lot of those schools probably still look good and you do a good job of maintaining the exterior and the appearance. But certainly you have significant needs, but the perception is that you don't. So what that just tells us is, hey, over the next few months, if you were to proceed with the school improvement measure, that we're going to need to do a little bit of education to the community, that we do in fact have significant needs, and this is what they are. We then asked to basically rate and provide feedback on a number of elements of the district. And this kind of, it falls into this category of do I like the district? Right? We asked about the quality of education, and I think you got good marks. And then we asked a rating of excellent, good, fair, or poor on the different categories. This, by the way, just to put everyone's mind at ease, this is the typical format or the typical responses from these surveys. Most people know their teachers. They get the highest marks. A lot of people know their principals. They get typically the next highest mark. I really pay most attention to the green. Is there an issue here where people are upset? And under none of these categories, even managing finances, by the way, good job on that respect, because that's an easy punching bag for voters to say, oh, the government or the school district, they don't know how to manage finances. You only have not even 15% of the folks in the community felt that was a negative. So in the what we'll call the likability category, I would say generally Brentwood Union School District has high marks in that respect. So then we get into some kind of thematic questions. These are things that might come up. We want to get a sense of kind of ideology among voters, et cetera. And so we say, hey, do you understand there's a correlation between good property values and good schools? And overwhelmingly, that's the case. 93% of the voters agreed with that. We also wanted to know about ideologies, and the question there, you see, I would never vote for a tax increase, no matter what it would be used for. All right, and 29%, I would say, is depending on the area, depending on the neighborhood, I would say is fairly typical. You get up into Shasta County in the state of Jefferson, you're going to get a little bit higher support for that question. You go a little bit more coastal, and that level goes down. So again, for context, nothing outlandish here as far as that, and you have 2/3 of the voters that disagree with that concept. Okay, the state, like I said earlier, I mean, the state is a source of funding for school improvements, capital projects, et cetera. But many folks, we asked to find out if they believe that that the state's not doing enough. And you can see that your voters, 82% agree that the state is not doing enough to fund local education, and that voters need to do more to protect the quality of facilities in the district. And this last question here on kind of the thematic, wasn't a thematic question. This was a demographic question, so I want to explain it to you here. When you pull that random sample, the demographics of that sample reflect the demographics of who we're looking to get opinions from, in this case, likely voters. So we already know from the voter file, political party, age, ethnicity, gender, homeowners, renters, right? All of that's public information. It's part of the voter file. We do know that. What we don't know is if there's a connection to the schools. And what we don't want is to oversample, say, the parent community, because it's safe to say that parents are more likely to support a school improvement bond measure than non-parents. So we asked this question, and we're pleased to report that you see the results there. 50% have no ties, never have had ties to the district. About a third of the respondents have kids in school now, and then about 17% had them in the past. So that's just kind of let's just make sure that we're statistically valid here with the data. Okay, a lot of information. This is one of the more important questions. This is the ballot measure question. This is also kind of an ideological. The survey caller reads that big, long run-on sentence. That's also known as the ballot language, typically limited to 75 words. We have a few-word fudge factor. No one's counting on the call. But we read them that question, and we say, if the election were held today, would you vote yes or no? And then we try to hone in, is that a strong or weak? Are you leaning? Are you an undecided? And I'm not going to read it, other than I will point out one element of it that says, generating on average 8.8 million annually, while bonds are outstanding at a rate of approximately 3 cents per $100 assessed value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Unless you're pretty smart and you know how bonds work and you can calculate your assessed value in your head and what 3 cents per $100 mean, all the while the respondent or the caller is waiting for an answer, most people volunteer an answer. And you can see most people either say, I'm voting no because it's a tax or a bond, right, 24.3%, or I'm voting yes because it supports the schools or supports the kids, 65.8. And then that 10% are the I don't know, I need more information, I'm leaning one way or another. I always find this telling, and I've been doing this for 27 years. But I always find this so interesting that people will volunteer and say, yeah, I can tell you I'm going to vote yes or no based on merely that 75-word paragraph. Now, the reason we ask it is we can't assume that we can educate and talk with every single voter. We should assume a baseline of the only thing that voter might hear or read is the 75 words when they cast their ballot. That might be the only thing they get. So this is a baseline to say, hey, absent any information, this is kind of where we're at, almost 2/3 support for a school improvement measure. Now, we'll go through this and we want to educate them and we want to provide information and we want to see if that support changes. Now, this is that battery of questions that were all randomized. So each person is getting a different order. We put them in order of greatest level support to lowest levels of support, just for the ease of following along in this presentation. So when you say what's most important to Brentwood Union School District voters, all getting 75% or better, it's leaky roofs, safety and security, HVAC, special ed early learning after school programs, classrooms and libraries, and plumbing and sewer systems. Now you might say, hey, what's that SSB stand for, John? You'll see throughout this survey an SSA or an SSB acronym, which stands for Split Sample Version A or Split Sample Version B. Okay, what that means is that of the 400 sample, 200 are going to get split sample A questions plus everything else, and the other 200 are going to get split sample B questions plus everything else. So if there's no SSA or SSB, all 400 respondents were given those questions. If you see this SSA or SSB, then it's split by 200. You may say, why would we do that? You're able to ask a similar question, but in a slightly different choice of words, right? So we can ask a near the same project, for example, or tax rate, but we ask it a little bit differently. And what we really want to find out is, does it matter how we characterize it? And I think you'll see that the answer is yes. But again, these are the top projects as indicated by voters in the district. Next batch, all above 70%. Student safety, drop off and pickup. Here's another SSA, health, safety, handicap, accessibility. So I'm going to go back. SSB, safety and security, including fire alarms. SSA, health, safety, and handicap accessibility. Slightly different, right? But a different response based on the respondents. Classrooms, restrooms and school facility upgrades, portables with permanent classrooms. Continuing on, we tested the new school. Construct a new elementary school to reduce overcrowding and traffic congestion versus just student overcrowding. The winner there was the first way with traffic congestion included. Energy efficiency lighting, and then the last two, upgrading athletic fields and facilities or playgrounds and play fields. Again, similar way that you would spend dollars. Orange and green, want to keep an eye out for those, right? So despite saying, hey, we got 55% on all of these, we also want to look at, is there something that stands out that the voters really don't like? Again, as I said at the beginning, it's their bond, it's their money, it's their schools. They should have a say and weigh in on this. As a board, I think this is valuable because as a board, you guys get to decide the direction of a bond program. You may have to make decisions about what projects make the list and what projects don't. And I think this is a good tool to give you insights on what's important for voters. Doesn't mean you don't do playgrounds and play fields. If that's one of the most pressing issues in the district, you probably should, and that shouldn't hurt things. But at the same token, voters would prefer their dollars to go to other places. So while this gives us good, feasibility assessment information and political feedback, it's also, I think, a useful tool when you're talking about your capital program. Okay, another SSA batch, and that's tax tolerances. Here we asked voters, we want to make sure they know it's a tax, right? Because you have to assume that information gets out and they're going to know it's a tax, and we want to tell them the kind of projects. So we ask them about a $30 per 100,000 assessed value per year, a 24 and a 19, and predictably, the lower the tax rate goes, the greater the support. We're looking for higher than 55% support. So you see $30 and you might say, oh, maybe that's a little bit too rich. Maybe that's a little bit too much to ask of our voters right now. At the $24 level, you're getting right there on the cusp. And then at the 19, you've got quite a bit more support. Now, interestingly enough, we asked the same tax rate, but we translated it on a monthly. What's $2.50 a month, $2 a month, $1.50 a month? And interestingly, the support goes up. Sometimes we do these surveys and the support doesn't change at all. Other times, like you see here, in most instances, you get a little bit more support when it's broken down on a monthly basis. So far, good feedback from the voters on a lot of things. Tax sensitivity is definitely an issue and something that we need to be mindful of going forward. After all this information, all the projects, the tax rates, some of these other thematic questions, asking them to rate you guys, we go back and say, okay, now you've heard of all this information. What do you think? Did we change your mind? Did we not? And interestingly enough, you actually go down a little bit. right? You went from 66% with 2% lean to 64% and 2.5%, 3% lean. So you don't go down a lot. If anything, really, I think those that were undecided became decided, right? Those that said, I don't have enough information on that 75-word ballot language, but now I do, and this is where I stand. Very encouragingly, of course, this gives you the level of support that you would need to go forward and be successful. We get this question a lot. Okay, so John, sounds like you're saying our community would support us. When should we go? We can go in June, which is a gubernatorial primary, or we can go in November. What we're able to extract from this data is the level of support among different voting groups. Now, there's no real benefit if I said, well, this is what Republicans versus Democrats think. This is what young people versus old people think. This is what homeowners versus renters think, right? That might be valuable at some point in time. But for the purposes of timing, what we really want to know is the propensity of voters and how do they think. So we know, based on voting history, how often people vote. So a June 2026 likely voter is comprised of someone that's made the last 7 elections, they've made 5, 6, or 7 of them, right? Those are the people that basically, I'm voting every year, I'm voting twice, or every other year, I should say. I'm gonna vote in both the primary and the general. The other group, the November only, are your newly registered zeros, or 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the last 7. These are the folks that only vote for president or only vote for president and governor, right? We call them low propensity vote because the likelihood of them voting in June is very low. So when you ask that same question, which is, hey, if the election were held today, would you vote yes or no? And you looked among the June population, you have about 53% support among your high propensity voters. You have 70% support among your low propensity voters. You combine those and that's where you get to that 64% overall. So when we're asked, hey, well, when should we go? We look at this data. This is probably some of the most important data, this particular slide on timing. And this timing tells us that November is preferable to June because of the propensity to vote and the mindset of the different groups that will be showing up in June versus the blend of who shows up in November, which is your Junes, because they never miss, but now you get to add to it another group. So in conclusion, some really good things came out of this, I think. One, it gives you some insights that generally people like the district, right? No matter what we were kind of testing, it was like, yes, I like the district. They do a good job. They like all of the projects. Great support for the projects. They're sensitive to the tax rate, especially when presented on a dollar per year basis. So what does that mean? It brings us to the second step in this assessment process. If this is the quantitative, it is a green light, let's proceed. But we're not done yet. We need to have some conversations with stakeholders. It would be great to get feedback from things like the Chamber of Commerce, some of your service clubs, some of your HOAs, the unions, right? Hey guys, what do you think? We feel like we can do 24, definitely 19, maybe we're between $19 and $24, but we need maybe more money. Do you think we could get to a higher level? And is this something you would support if we did a $27 or a $28 or a $29 level? If you got really good, strong feedback there, then I think you could consider very strongly a higher tax rate. If the feedback was muted and you didn't get a lot of support from those qualitative conversations, then I think you're better off sticking to a lower tax rate, a $19 or a $24. Because again, ultimately, whatever you decide as a board, you don't get to raise taxes. We all know that. You get to put something in front of voters and let them decide. And again, as I said at the beginning, if we've done our job you'll know that, hey, this is the program that our voters support and want. And it may not be everything we wanted, but it's what they want, and those are the successful programs. So that concludes my presentation on the survey results. I'm happy to take any questions that you have on the survey or on programs in general.
I have a couple of questions. The monthly versus yearly thing, obviously there's a big difference there. Is there a way in that 75-word blurb for it to be worded as a monthly thing versus yearly? Is that something that can go into it?
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. Yeah, the legal requirements of what constitutes the 75 words is pretty specific. You do have a tax rate statement in addition to, as part of the sample ballot. That provides a lot more detail, but even that must first have that disclosure of an annual basis. So really that monthly is more campaign committee. You know, when you're talking to people, let them know, hey, it's only $2 a month per 100,000 of assessed value, or it's only $250. But yeah, where the 75 words and the tax rate statement are quite specific in how that has to appear.
Okay. My other question relating to the June versus November thing. Is there a way to find out how people would react if there are more bond measures to vote on? Like I know in November you're likely to see other districts or other organizations putting bonds out that people will have to decide on versus a June that may only have one thing to decide against. Does that factor in any way?
I mean, it can. I mean, if you know in advance of what is on that ballot, and if it's a direct competitor or a complementary bond, depending on your point of view, those are questions that you could incorporate into a survey. You know, one thing that may or may not be of interest, but the district can do what's called a tracking poll. Right? You got your baseline survey. A tracking poll is kind of a mini survey that just says, hey, we're spending the next 5-6 months educating. Let's ask a few similar questions and see if these track and we still have the support, or did we move the needle and we have even more support? Usually folks get a better sense of what's going on as you get closer to the deadline. Sure. And so it's not uncommon to say, hey, the city of Brentwood is considering a 1-cent sales tax. If we were both on the ballot, would you support them? Would you support us? Would you support both, or would you support neither? So you can ask those kinds of questions. If you don't have that level of specificity, then I think you kind of boil down more towards historical performance. And that usually, in my experience, again, 27 years of doing this, is that a high turnout election, even with more questions on the ballot, fares better than a low turnout election with fewer questions on the ballot.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all
I just want to compliment you or you and your people. I mean, the data is just very impressive for us to make a very educational decision here. I mean, all the questions that I had, you answered in your presentation. So kudos to you, seriously. You guys did a great job. So
thank you.
Do you give us direction also on if you're going with this election, this is when you should start this type of solicitation for positive information to our voters, and it should intensify, and setting up phone banks and all of that kind of things that are done?
Yeah, we definitely can help you. And that's would be one of the next kind of key steps here is if the district is saying, hey, we want to take the next step. We want to continue to explore, because the survey data says you should continue to explore, right? This is like this community has supported you for 4 bonds. It's been a decade. We're probably ready for our 5th. The first 2 have all been completely paid off. The third one, it gets paid off, I think, next year or in 2027. So you'll only have one measure on the tax rolls. But if the direction from the board is to say, let's keep exploring, then yeah, our job will be to hold the district's hand and make suggestions of, okay, maybe we need to consider hiring these folks. Here's a timeline that we can follow along with. Here's the do's and don'ts, right? You'll have bond counsel, which is an attorney that all districts have on bond programs. They'll provide you with some do's and don'ts, right? Like you're not allowed to campaign, if you're a district employee on district time, something obvious like that. Don't put this on the district website that says, make sure you support us, vote yes, right? I mean, there's some do's and don'ts that we want to make sure that you avoid. But yeah, we're kind of a chorister, if you will, to kind of guide you in that process and put you with the right parties and give you the right advice as we go closer and closer to what ultimately could be a resolution adopted by the board.
Is there any other questions? Well, thank you, John. It was very clear and complete.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again.
Thanks, John.
Our final item is the first reading of board policy, board bylaws, administrative regulations. Dana?
Yeah, no, board, as you can see, the summaries are here. These are just informational items. These are changes as are required by new laws that have been passed, and Nicole has a great summary there for you. But if there's no questions or anything, they'll come back for a vote at the next meeting.
There was a highlighted sentence in there somewhere. I forget which one that was. Should have noted it. I was just wondering if the language that was being looked at, why it was highlighted.
I don't have a highlighted one on mine.
Oh boy.
On the board policy?
Oh, just give me a moment.
Yeah, I'm looking too. I don't see
Yeah, it was in this section.
Well, this is an information item, so it comes.
If you find it, Vic,
bring it up.
you can send it to me, and I'll look into it for you.
Is there any board member want to provide anything for the next agenda item? If not, I'll take a motion to close the meeting and announce that our next meeting is December the 10th at 6 p.m.
Wow.
Motion to adjourn.
a second.
Second to adjourn. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks all. Thanks, everybody.